I'm Michelle Reimers, Turlock Irrigation District's General Manager, and I'm excited to welcome you to TID's Virtual Operations Tour. Before you virtually travel to the district's various facilities within our 662 square mile Central California service territory, I'd like to give you an overview of our operations and the services we are proud to provide. TID has a rich history as the first irrigation district in California, and one of only 4 irrigation districts that also provides retail electric power. TID was established in 1887 after the Wright Act was passed and allowed residents to form a publicly owned irrigation district. After formation, the district set out to secure water rights on the Tuolumne River and began building a water infrastructure system that you see today. In 1923, TID entered the retail electric business, becoming the first irrigation district in California to do so. Today, TID's 250 miles of gravity-fed canals and laterals irrigate approximately 150,000 acres of vital farmland. TID also owns and operates an integrated and diverse electric generation, transmission, and distribution system that provides power to over 240,000 people. I hope you enjoy visiting the remarkable facilities that are operated by just over 450 dedicated employees and governed by our 5-member locally elected board of directors. TID was established by visionaries, and we continue to innovate as we provide safe, reliable, competitively priced water and electric service to our customers. We are proud to be community-focused and community-owned. Coming up, we'll take you on a tour spanning our entire service area. Let's begin with a look at how we manage our watershed in real time to ensure water supplies are available today and into the future. Let's send it over to TID hydrologist Olivia Kramer.
The water that our customers receive starts all the way up in the Sierra Nevadas in portions of the Yosemite National Park. From there, it runs down into Don Pedro and is used to serve our customers. From Don Pedro, water is then served for municipal supply, irrigation, environmental requirements, as well as for the use of hydroelectric power, or if necessary, for flood releases. We have to operate around many conflicting demands, including irrigation, municipal supply, environmental requirements, and hydroelectric power. On average, the Tuolumne River watershed receives about 2 million acre-feet of runoff. And just to give some context, an acre-foot represents 1 foot of water on an acre of land. Think of a football field with 1 foot of water on it. TID has always prided itself on being innovative. We have implemented one of the very few hourly, physically based hydrologic models within the water operations systems in California. So essentially, it takes in information as far as precip, temperature, solar radiation, as well as wind, to then model what the snowpack, soil moisture, evapotranspiration, as well as runoff would be expected for the watershed. So it's able to create your initial conditions of your watershed, and then you're able to feed it forecasted information in order to get an idea of what are the future states of your watershed going to look like. And this allows us to do that long-term planning for Don Pedro Reservoir and our resources. Along with this, we have utilized technology such as the Airborne Snow Observatory, which was started by NASA, and the Tuolumne acted as a pilot program for that. To give a better idea of what ASO is, it is using a LiDAR attached to an aircraft in order to measure the depth of the snowpack within the watershed. From there, based on density calculations, you can get an idea of how much water is held in that snowpack that will later run off into Don Pedro Reservoir. In the past, TID only had access to the snow survey program measurements, and these are where they take a tube, go up into the watershed, and take a measurement as to the depth as well as the density of that, in order to then extrapolate how much water is in the watershed. Now, comparing this to ASO, you go from 17 measurements to now 4.7 million measurements. In the past, you could have up to 30% error in your runoff forecasts. By combining ASO technology with our HFAM model, our projections for 2020 runoff were within 2% of observed. So overall, you're leading to much greater accuracy in your forecasting. Along with this, we have been partnering with Scripps Institute, who has been facilitating the research of atmospheric rivers. Atmospheric rivers are essentially what they sound like. They are large rivers of water within the atmosphere, and they are responsible for a majority of California's water supply and connected to many of the major floods that have occurred in California. And so we want to pay attention to these because too few usually means drought and too many usually means flood. In order to help our board make decisions, we present to them weekly on the initial state of the watershed as well as the state of the reservoirs within the watershed. From there, we're able to use information from our models as well as information from Scripps Institute as far as atmospheric rivers that we might be expecting in order to look at what is the long-term state of the watershed going to be, and they can make better informed decisions for our customers. A majority of water operators look at a couple months out or even maybe a year out, but for TID, we're looking at our long-term sustainability going out 50, 100 years. So we have been working on climate change research in order to get a better idea of where are the vulnerabilities within our system and identifying those, and then understanding what are the adaptation measures that we can take in order to limit our risk long-term. Turlock Irrigation District has had a long history within the community at over 135 years serving our customers, and it really gives me a lot of pride that I am helping to ensure that we can serve our customers for another 135 years in the future.
There's no better place to start the tour of our system than where our irrigation system begins, Don Pedro Reservoir. We'll send it to Brad Cohen, TID's Chief Operating Officer, for more.
The Don Pedro project squarely is integrated into TID's mission, which is delivering affordable and reliable energy and water to its customers. How did the Don Pedro project come to fruition? Really, we have to go back to the early 1900s when both districts, Turlock Irrigation District and the Modesto Irrigation District, realized that water storage was necessary on the Tuolumne River to facilitate a growing economy. And so in 1923, the districts built what is now called Old Don Pedro, which was a concrete arch dam that impounded 289,000 acre-feet of water. And just for perspective, at that time, that was roughly 1 year's worth of water supply for the districts. Also built at the time was a powerhouse at the bottom of the dam, which provided 15 megawatts at its max capacity of clean, 100% carbon-free energy that was delivered to our customers. And this is a milestone because this was TID's introduction into the retail electric business. The Old Don Pedro project served its customers very well for many, many years, but as the agricultural economy grew, it was also apparent that we needed more water storage on the Tuolumne River. And in 1971, the districts developed and built what was then called New Don Pedro, now just Don Pedro, which is what it exists in its current state, which was much larger in every aspect. It is the fourth highest dam in California and the sixth largest reservoir in California. The Don Pedro project is owned by the Turlock Irrigation District and the Modesto Irrigation District. The Turlock portion is 68.46% and the Modesto portion is 31.54%. This represents the percentage of irrigated acres that existed at the time the Don Pedro project was created. It is a earth rock fill clay core dam that impounds 2,030,000 acre feet of water for our customers. And the power plant also much larger than Old Don Pedro's, with a max capacity of 203 megawatts of, again, 100% carbon-free clean energy. And this project as it sits today has benefited our customers for the last 50 years. The Don Pedro project has 4 major tenants, and not shockingly, the first tenant is water supply. And the 2 main deliveries out of the dam are, one, to meet all of the irrigation demands of both districts, and the second is to meet the flows required in the river to maintain a healthy river system. Second tenant is hydrogeneration. As mentioned, 203 megawatts of 100% carbon-free energy to provide to our customers. But another aspect of hydrogeneration is its flexibility. By design, hydro generation is very flexible, can ramp up and down very quickly, which is really good as we integrate more solar and wind within the district. Third tenet is flood control. District staff works very closely with the Army Corps of Engineers to operate Don Pedro to provide capacity within the reservoir to hold those flood flows and protect downstream health and safety. And the fourth tenet is recreation. It is required by our FERC license to provide recreation on the facility, and the district created Don Pedro Recreation Agency, which has built a destination which provides boating, fishing, day use, and camping for our recreating community. I'm very proud of being part of the Turlock Irrigation District and specifically the Don Pedro project, as it provides such a tremendous benefit to the local community that I'm very much a part of.
We don't have to go far for our next stop, Don Pedro Dam. Here's Tim Payne, TID's Director of Power Generation.
The dam is the 9th tallest in the United States. It's 585 feet tall. The main embankment consists of an impervious clay core at the center. That's the main water retention component of the dam. Upstream and downstream, most of the material is known as the fill material. It's generally for stability purposes, holding the structure in place and resisting the load of the reservoir itself. The different zones in the dam are really designed to filter and control seepage through the dam. There's a spillway, which consists of a controlled spillway and an emergency overflow spillway. They work in tandem. The controlled spillway has 3 large tainter gates, which are 45 feet by 30 feet, so fairly large gates. The total capacity of the spillway is roughly 525,000 cubic feet per second. The spillway, the dam, and the reservoir are designed to attenuate and minimize flooding damages downstream when we have a storm event. The new Don Pedro Dam was completed in 1971. It replaced the original old Don Pedro Dam, which is still under the reservoir behind us. So the main embankment during construction utilized earthen and rock material from the surrounding area. Roughly 16.4 million cubic yards of fill material was brought in with heavy equipment for a period of about 4 to 5 years. It's not something that was easily done. The finances and the duration and the construction was just tremendous, the amount of work that went into it and planning. So I would definitely describe it as visionary. The majority of the top 10 tallest dams in the United States are operated and owned by federal or state agencies. Don Pedro is one of 2 that is owned by smaller local utilities, so we do take some pride in that as well. So TID's Owner's Dam Safety Program encompasses 5 different sites within TID and 28 total dams. Don Pedro is a part of that, and it's our largest dam, which comes naturally with the most resources that it takes to make sure it's maintained and operated in a safe fashion. Within our Owner's Dam Safety Program, TID does inspections quarterly of every dam. We have specific checklists of things we're looking for tied to potential failure modes to make sure we identify if something was happening. In addition to TID staff, we have independent consultants that come do specialty inspections every so often, 5-year basis on certain dams, including Don Pedro. And then the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, as well as the California Division of Safety of Dams, do annual inspections as well. Something that a lot of people don't know about Don Pedro is just what's underneath the dam and the powerhouse. Driving up to the lake, you might notice you drove across the dam. I think a lot of people might not even notice that, but beneath the reservoir and going around the reservoir and through the mountainside is 2 major tunnels. There's an 18.5-foot diameter tunnel for power supply, and there's a 30-foot diameter bypass tunnel known as the diversion tunnel, and these are about 2/3 of a mile long each. And within these tunnels there are some very large gates and valves. One gate in particular weighs 165,000 pounds, so there's some substantial equipment inside the structures that most people would not know exist. It's definitely very humbling to be a part of managing and maintaining this facility. It's a large dam, and although it's in very good shape and very unlikely to have any problems, the consequences would be kind of inconceivable if it did happen. So we do a lot of monitoring, a lot of instrumentation readings, and diving into data and evaluating the risks and potential failure modes and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's a good solid structure and simple and robust, just like it should be.
Now let's learn more about how the water stored in Don Pedro helps power our community. Chris Martin, TID Hydroelectric Department Manager, is waiting for us at the Don Pedro Powerhouse.
The Don Pedro project and its importance to the valley, the two go hand in hand. You look at it economically, the way that when Don Pedro was built, the boom that happened with the agriculture, the power that it's provided, the flood control that it's provided, the safety that it has provided to all those down in the valley. It has been a great asset. The project is licensed by Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So the Powerhouse generates 203 megawatts of power. 3 units are 55 megawatts, 1 unit is 38 megawatts. Don Pedro is carbon free, and the ability for it to ramp up and down is a great asset to not only TID, but also to the grid as a whole. When clouds come over or the wind stops blowing, hydro generation can continue and ramp up and cover those. For the Turlock Irrigation District, it is our black start unit, meaning that if the district did go completely black, that we were able to generate power and restore power via this site. The reservoir stores the water energy, and then as it goes through the turbine, it's converted to rotating mechanical energy. The turbine is connected to the rotor, which generates then electric power through the stator that is connected to the grid. The Holojet, first of all, is very impressive when it's running. It is unbelievable, but it's actually called in all the documentation as the flood control valve, and that's primarily its use, is the flood control valve. It operates during high flow needs when the need for water to be released from the dam is increased above what the generating units can release, and then we use it to release that water. The life extension project is like it sounds, a life extension. The goal is to get another 50 years of life out of the power plant. We're going to refurbish all the units. Basically, if it's not in concrete, then it's going to be replaced, including the switchyard. We're going to redo the switchyard completely, which feeds power both to TID and MID. The life extension project will not only extend the life of Don Pedro, it will also make it more efficient. The new runners and generators will be a lot more efficient than the previous ones due to new technology, new materials, those types of things. And in addition to that, there are benefits to capacity. The project will take the units from 55 up to 75 megawatts, and Unit 4 will remain the same. One of the things that comes to mind about Don Pedro that most people don't know is that Units 1, 2, and 3 spin clockwise. Unit 4, added in 1989, spins counterclockwise. I've researched the reason for that. I do not know the reason for it. There's been speculation that the original engineers were from the southern hemisphere. Therefore, when they see, be blunt, you see a toilet go down, it spins clockwise in the northern hemisphere and counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere. They were from the southern hemisphere, so when it would spin, it would go that direction. That's a hypothesis. The Don Pedro project, in my life, it is very personal. I've lived almost my entire life in basically kind of the shadow of it. My family lives down below the dam. It is an honor, and it's just unbelievable that I get to do that, take care of it, and manage it the way I do now. It's unbelievable that's my job.
Another important aspect of the Don Pedro project is recreation. Ryan Reese, Recreation Manager at Don Pedro Recreation Agency, is up next to show us how Don Pedro offers endless opportunities to enjoy the outdoors.
We have about 160 miles of shoreline out here behind us. It's a great place to recreate. Anything you want to do outdoors, we pretty much offer it as an opportunity. The Don Pedro Recreation Agency was formed by the Turlock Irrigation District, the Modesto Irrigation District, and the City and County of San Francisco as part of a FERC license. We have our own separate governing board with a representative from each of the 3 agencies, so it's a 3-member board. And we are primarily funded through revenues, guest entrances, fees like that, but we do rely on sponsorship contributions from the 3 agencies as well. On an annual basis, we see over 50,000 vehicles enter our parks. We do have 3 separate parks with campgrounds and boat launches at each facility. The 3 parks are called Blue Oaks, Fleming Meadows, and Moxon Point. We have different styles of camping, from RV full hookups to tents to walk-in campsites. We even introduced our new Vista Trail with the wilderness area where people can enjoy the outdoors. Our lakeshore camping is very popular because it's not very often you see that you can come out by boat and camp on a shoreline around the lake. We have many recreation opportunities, including boating, fishing, hunting. We have a swimming lagoon. It's about a 2-acre pond. It's filtered water. We have 2 marinas, one at Moxon Point, one at Fleming Meadows. The marinas offer food and beverage as well as boat rentals, all the way up to houseboats down to fishing boats, including personal watercrafts. What most people don't know is that we operate very similarly to a small city. Everything is managed in-house here at DPRA. Our rangers, they're all medically trained and wildland fire trained, so they're certified first responders. Our park maintenance staff provide drinking water to the campgrounds as well as the residences we have here and the facilities. They even handle their own sewer treatment. DPRA is open 24/7, 365. In the wintertime, we have plenty of opportunities for recreation. Although it's a little cold, you can still come out and use the trails. People love camping year-round. One of the best parts about being out here is that you can do anything.
Now let's head over to one of the most historic spots in our service area, Grange Dam. TID's supervising engineering technician, Keith Larson, will explain how it's still serving our area well.
Behind me is Grange Dam. It's approximately 2.3 miles downstream of Don Pedro Powerhouse. The dam was constructed between 1891 and 1893, finishing in December 13th of 1893. At the time of its completion, it was the largest dam of its kind in the world. The Grange Dam is a masonry dam, which means it's boulders set in concrete. The concrete for the dam is made with Portland cement as one of its primary ingredients. At the time of its completion, the cost of the dam was approximately $550,000. It'd be about $17 million in today's money. It's an overflow dam, which means it doesn't impound water as its primary purpose. What it does is it brings the level of the river up enough to divert water to the TID canal, the MID canal, and in times of excess water, it flows over the top. The engineering with this dam was tremendous. They picked a good spot for it, narrow canyon, high walls. They knew the geology. It's anchored into bedrock. It does a very good job serving the same purpose it did when it was originally built. The dam was raised twice. It was raised 18 inches in 1923, and it was raised 24 inches in 1930, giving it an overall finished height today of 131 feet. Water from the TID side flows exclusively by gravity through 250 miles of canal. It's delivered to our customers. Any additional water is spilled to the Tuolumne River, the Merced River, or the San Joaquin River. The powerhouse was built in 1924. It has a 5 megawatt capacity. Power serves the residential customers in LaGrange, Turlock, any of our TID service areas. During World War II, this was actually considered a place of high security. Up on that hill over there, you can see there's actually an anti-aircraft gun emplacement that was put in World War II. One thing that a lot of people don't know about Grange Dam, there's a lot of history written about the dam. One thing that I don't think people realize is what it meant to both districts. This was the very first project that both districts were able to complete. You know, this was finished basically 6 or so years before irrigation water was even delivered. But they were able to complete this as one of the first building projects that they did, and they split the cost 50-50, and there was a lot of time and effort spent with both districts supervising the project. Tremendous historic significance to this site.
Next up, a visit to the Tuolumne River for a look at TID's commitment to protecting native fish and restoring natural habitat. Here's Michael Cook, Director of Water Resources and Regulatory Affairs.
Tuolumne River starts up at Mount Lyell in Yosemite National Park at about 13,000 feet, then travels about 150 miles down to its confluence with the San Joaquin River. For the first 75 miles or so, the Tuolumne is a wild and scenic river where whitewater rafting is common as recreation. As the Tuolumne leaves Yosemite National Park, it enters into the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, which is owned and operated by the City and County of San Francisco. Hetch Hetchy provides about 240 million gallons of water a day from the Tuolumne for its drinking water customers in the Bay Area. And then the river enters Don Pedro Reservoir, which is about 25 miles long. From the Don Pedro Reservoir, it's about 52 miles down to the confluence with the San Joaquin River. Tuolumne River provides habitat to a number of different species, including bald eagles, rainbow trout, and Chinook salmon. And over time, the run of the Chinook salmon is beginning to decline, as it is in most of the western United States. There are several reasons for the decline in the salmon fishery, including climate change, changing river conditions, changing ocean conditions, predation, and changes in the Delta estuary. But TID and its partners are working on a number of projects and programs to help improve the ecology of the Tuolumne River and help restore salmon populations. A number of these projects and programs involve flow and non-flow measures, which we think together combined will improve the robustness of the salmon fishery. For instance, we're looking to put more water in the river on a year-round basis, particularly in the springtime when it can do the most benefit. We're also looking at significant flows in the spring to help flush out the juvenile salmon as they make their trip towards the ocean. We're also looking to do a number of habitat projects and putting over 100,000 tons of gravel back in the river. As you know, the dams sometimes prevent the conveyance of gravel from upstream to downstream. So we'll put gravel in the river behind me, and then that will move downstream and provide habitat for spawning salmon. We're also looking at improving in-channel habitat. Over the years, the Tuolumne River was mined extensively during the gold rush period, and so all of the gravel and rock in the river was removed. And we're looking to put that back. We're also looking at building a substantial floodplain habitat, because water interacts with the floodplain and the native vegetation. It increases the number of microorganisms in the river that these young salmon eat. And also improve their size and robustness as they make their treacherous journey out to the ocean. We're also working on a predation barrier. Predation is a significant problem in the Tuolumne. A number of non-native species eat the fish as they move down the river, and so we're trying to put up a barrier to stop that from happening and then remove those non-native species from the river entirely. We're also building what's called an infiltration gallery, which will allow us to put significant more flows down the river in the summertime and then recapture those flows at the Gear Road Bridge where they can be used for farmland purposes. So you're actually using the same water twice for different beneficial uses, another innovation by the district and its partners. But one of the things you don't know is that we have a full-time biologist at TID who's constantly monitoring conditions in the river and Don Pedro Reservoir to make sure we're protecting the native fish species in there and complying with all terms and conditions of our licenses. We're also looking to work with a team of regulators and scientists to adaptively manage the new flows in the river, so we can look at how the river and salmon are responding and adjust those flows accordingly to make a bigger difference with the water we have available.
From the Tuolumne River to Turlock Lake, let's learn more about how we reliably deliver water to serve the vital ag land within our service territory. Here's Tu Her, Assistant General Manager of Water Resources.
We're here today at Turlock Lake, TID's first and oldest reservoir. Turlock Lake was constructed in 1913 and became operational in 1914 with a storage capacity of 45,000 acre-feet. The primary purpose of Turlock Lake is to capture and store Tuolumne River water for use during the summer months when the run of the river typically goes dry. Turlock Lake also provides TID the flexibility to generate electricity at Don Pedro independent of the canal system, thereby maximizing Don Pedro's value to its customers. In 1980, TID constructed Turlock Lake Power Plant, which is a small hydro generation facility just on the downstream side of Turlock Lake. It produces approximately 3.3 megawatt of clean, carbon-free power. TID also owns and operates 3 other small hydro generation facilities, specifically speaking, Grange Power Plant, Dawson Power Plant, and Hickman Power Plant. TID also maintains, operates, and shares in the energy generation of 5 other small hydro generation facilities. Altogether, these small hydro generation facilities help TID meet the state's renewable energy mandate. Once water is released from Turlock Lake, it flows down the main canal down to 3 main canals, which is the Highline Canal, the Turlock Main Canal, and the Sears Main Canal. From there, it is conveyed through the rest of the irrigation system to the lands of our growers. One fact that most people don't know about Turlock Lake is that it is one of the largest recharge basins within our region. On an annual basis, and historically speaking, Turlock Lake recharges approximately 35,000 acre-feet of water into the groundwater aquifer.
TID maintains 250 miles of canals that carry water to growers, and we're using new technology to make sure we're getting the most out of every drop. Here's Water Operations Manager Seth Aldridge to share more.
Right now we're on that system on the Turlock Main Canal at the head of Upper Lateral 4. Our conveyance system is 250 miles long and it's over 100 years old. From Turlock Lake, water is either released or held back from our system based on the demand of the farmers down here on the lower system. Once water is released from Turlock Lake, it moves down our main canal to the division in Hickman. At the division, the water is split in half and taken 2 ways, down the Series Main to the west and down the Turlock Main to the south, which is where we are today. One of the challenges that we face in this system is that it's a gravity-fed system, meaning that gravity is pulling the water through the canals, and so we cannot stop it. This is why we try to schedule water to irrigate farmers 3 days out ahead of time, so that we have plenty of time to plan and prepare for the water that's going to be coming down. Our system is a spill system, which means gravity pulls it down and any extra water would spill to the river. We do our best not to spill to the river, and we've recently been making many improvements on the ditch to automate drops and canal structures so that we can preserve and conserve our water and use it at a later time. Each year we spend a great deal of time and money automating the system at different points. This involves demoing current drops, and then we rebuild those drops with new automated systems with radio technology. What this does for us is, 1, it helps us gain more control over the water in the gravity system, and 2, it helps us record data. These gates are controlling water, but they're also sending information back to our offices and back to our water distribution operators. They in turn use this data to record irrigation information to meet state and federal requirements. These devices not only control the water, but they're also measuring the water, and they're sending this information back so that we can record accurately how much water farmers are using. Our irrigation boundary on the east side of us is bordered by the Sierra Nevada foothills. On the west side of us would be the San Joaquin River. To the north is the Tuolumne River, and the southern boundary is made up of the Merced River. Each service area where one of our operators works has between 300 and 500 people who all irrigate in different ways with different amounts of water at different times and have different needs. And so it can be a great challenge to try to meet everybody's need at the same time, 24 hours a day, but that's certainly what we strive to do. A lot of the public tends to have an idea of the water distribution operators as kind of lone wolves, kind of working by themselves. That couldn't be further from the truth. I would say a majority of our job is to deal with people. It's customer service based, where there's a need in the community for water to be delivered at certain parcels, and we're very good at bringing it from the lake and delivering it there in a safe way. Our irrigation season typically runs March through October. At the end of the season, we drain all of our canals, and then we coordinate with construction and maintenance. And we start the work that's typical maintenance, which includes cleaning the ditches, patching the ditches, and making new improvements where necessary. You know, I love working here because I feel like delivering the water is the most important thing that's happening in this area, and it allows a lot of other people to make a living.
and I also work with people. So the people that I meet are using the water to grow crops, to make a living, to support their families. And I value that greatly because I'm a small part of that.
Maintaining TID infrastructure throughout our service area is a year-round task, and our talented crews do almost all of it in-house. Chris Harden, our Construction and Maintenance Department Manager, explains all the work happening behind the scenes to make sure our system is reliable year after year.
A lot of the work within the Construction and Maintenance Department may not be the most glamorous that you may see in the news headlines or stuff like that, but is highly important to the district to keep us rolling and the water flowing. So our system's about 100 years old. We got 250 miles of canal bank to maintain, along with 700 miles of pipeline. We roughly have 1,600 side gates. We have about 400 drops within the system, such as the one behind us, and the drop is made to check up the water so we can keep a constant elevation to the side gates for irrigating. We roughly got about 600 pieces of equipment, anything from backhoe, excavator, all the way up to a 70-ton crane. The C&M department consists of pipeline and gunite, which repairs our pipelines underground, gunite to resurface the canal surface roughly every 50 years. We try to get back to that same spot. We have heavy equipment and pest control, which maintains our banks from grading to the spray guys following back behind them and doing pre-emergent. We have a fleet and fabrication division that maintains our 600 pieces of equipment along with our fabricators that build anything that we need within the district. Part of the C&M duties is to assist other departments within the district. One of the main ones is our line department. We go out, we do crane support. We might be running a backhoe to do underground burn-offs and help out on emergency work, replace vaults, transformers with them, and anything from facilities across the district, pretty much every other department that may need some construction needs. So behind us is the drop rehabilitation that we budget for our capital projects. We're actually rebuilding a drop going to automation to work with our series main regulating reservoir that's being built. So at the start of the irrigation season, the construction and maintenance crews go through, we maintain the banks, we maintain the flow by checking our aquatic growth. We have pipeline crews that are out maintaining the 700 miles of pipeline that we have. Pretty much keep the system rolling. Anything that might be a break or an overtopping, we maintain that along with still helping the rest of the district with their construction needs. Coming into the winter work, roughly around October 15th, that's when we do all of our capital projects, which would consist of gunite and resurfacing the canals to building the drops like the one behind us, or the series main reservoir that we currently have going on. During this time, we get the WDO staff to come into construction maintenance in the winter to up our crew to about 83 to help accomplish these projects. One unique thing about the construction maintenance crew here at TID is we maintain our infrastructure all in-house. If we have to send things out with busy years, that's one thing, but we have the capability, we have the talent within our crews to not only maintain but improve our infrastructure. This being a 100-year-old system is a constant sense of pride here at the district that the type of work they were doing without the equipment we have these days is a big accomplishment. Things have changed over time and we're constantly updating and looking for new ways to be more efficient and just get to that next level. We always want to be the forefront when it comes to maintaining our system.
Next up, we're headed to the south end of our service area, to the Lateral 8 regulating reservoir. Supervising engineering technician Wes Miller is there to show us how the reservoir is greatly improving water reliability.
We are in Hillmore, California at our Lateral 8 regulating reservoir today, which is a key location for us in our operations, nestled in between 3 different canals and was a prime location for this type of project. So the storage of this reservoir as exists today is 129 acre feet. When this project was first started in 2015, it was about 29 acre feet. So we added 100 acre feet to the storage just because we saw the benefit in the first year of the pilot. We saw the benefit of added storage. It provides flexibility in the area because this area is so far away from our source water from Turlock Lake that the customers in this area would see really a low level of service because it just took so long for the water to get down here. This is a restart point for the system, so the customers have seen a huge increase in service. This pond is at the bottom of a 26-mile canal. The water that comes into this pond is basically overages, system overages in the system where we have a difference in supply and demand. Okay, so the demand is the customer side and what they use, and the supply is what is coming from the lake. And whenever there is mismatches in the supply and demand in the past, because of where this is, the water would spill to the Merced River, and so it would be a loss to us. It would be in the form of 5,000 to 7,000 acre feet a year, which is substantial. Because this is here now, the water can just gravity into this pond. There's no pumping required when there's extra water. It just gravities in naturally. And then when there's a need downstream, it can be pumped out later to meet the demand downstream. Specific to water conservation, one of the benefits we've seen that we did not plan on or know that was going to happen was the reduction in groundwater pumping. So this area historically has relied on a lot of groundwater pumping just because of where it was in the system and the high demand for the forage crops. They demand more water than most crops, and so more frequent irrigation equals more water. This was able to meet that demand more closely. Customers were able, the wait times were reduced. The groundwater pumping that we used to have to do to meet that demand, we were able to reduce by 90%. Because now instead of turning on a pump, the water is here in a reservoir, and it's surface water, it's not groundwater. Typically when you're talking about surface water, it's a higher quality of water. When you're pumping from the ground, there's salts, nitrates, other things that you're pumping out of each location. This mitigates some water quality issues that you may have had in the past. There are plans for 2 more regulating reservoirs currently. We're going to have the Ceres Main Reservoir. We also have the Lateral 5.5 regulating reservoir along the Harding Drain, which will be the next year after that. It'll be a significant amount of savings for the district. This just one location, coupled with the automation that we've done on the canal, saves about 5,500 acre feet a year. That amount of water, so everybody understands how big a football field is, right? Everybody's been to a football game or seen it on TV. If you were to take the amount of water that this one facility saves every year, it would cover 4,200 football fields, 1 foot deep. So it's a significant amount of water. Those other 2 reservoirs combined with this one will be over 15,000 football fields a foot deep every single year. So it's substantial. Projects like these save a significant amount of water, and we're trying to irrigate more with less, honestly. And without these projects, we wouldn't be able to make that happen. We're doing everything we can to save this water, and in doing so, we secure that water for the future for years to come.
Now let's take a look at how TID is leading the way to help meet the state's carbon-free energy goals. Here's Dan Severson, Assistant General Manager of Power Supply, with a rundown of the district's growing renewable energy portfolio.
TID has a very diverse set of generation by fuel, including renewables, hydroelectric, natural gas, as well as a variety of contracts for generic power, as well as transmission ownership to bring those renewables and that generation to our customers. We've been doing this a long time. It started in 1923 with our first electric delivery. It continued into the 60s with the building of Don Pedro. So TID has a 3-prong approach revolving around affordability, reliability, and the most cost-effective and environmentally responsible manner. TID's been an early adopter. In the 70s, we built 9 small hydro facilities along the run of river and run of canals here in the area, which turns our water flows into renewable energy. It continued into the 80s with our investments in the geyser steam fields, which helped supply a geothermal power plant. We invested significant amount of money and resources in the Tuolumne wind farm in 2009 in advance of the state's mandate to do so. Followed by, in 2015, we added 54 megawatts of solar located in Southern California. So while we're well positioned to meet the 60% by 2030 renewables mandate and the 100% carbon-free state mandate by 2045, we have quite a bit of work to do. That takes us to more of our forward-looking projects, Project Nexus being one of them. That's our solar over canals project that really leverages our existing infrastructure, provides clean, local, reliable energy for our customers, as well as the district's also evaluating loading solar to go over some of our existing reservoirs. So as we transition into this next era of renewable generation, we remain mindful that our existing facilities, being dispatchable and controllable and here inside the district, have served the district well for years and are extremely important part of our core tenet of being reliable. Balancing that with resources that are not dispatchable. The sun shines when it wants to, the clouds come over, wind blows when it wants, water and retail demand are all extremely variable. Bridging that gap in a reliable manner, cost-affordable manner, is something that we're going to have to solve. I say this all the time, and I've heard this over the years, that we're going to change more in the next 10 years than we have in the previous 100. We are the benefactors of many forward-thinking, really good decisions by the people that preceded us, and it's an awesome responsibility and something I take very seriously, setting up the next generation of the way we do business for our customers.
Our next stop is the site of a first-in-the-nation project, putting solar panels over canals. TID Senior Civil Engineer Bill Penny is there to explain how this pilot project will generate power and save water.
Project Nexus is a first-of-its-kind project in the United States to test the installation of solar panels over canals. It's a project funded by the state of California through administration of the Department of Water Resources. The state has allocated $20 million to fund this pilot project to test all the perceived benefits of this concept that the UC Merced research team has been studying over the past several years. So what the project is going to do is going to install solar panels over approximately 8,500 linear feet of canals. Just as you typically would see solar panels over the ground, they're going to be just placed over water. The main benefit that the district sees with Project Nexus is the energy generation that's coming from the solar panels. It's not a new concept, but it definitely, the implementation of this in the country is going to be the first time it's ever been done. We've decided on two different sites for this project. The first site, which is where we are today, is we're going to be covering approximately 8,000 linear feet of canal. The canal varies from 20 to 25 feet wide. So what we're going to be testing here at this site is different orientations of the canal. Primarily, we're going to be facing the solar panels to the south to capture as much sunlight as possible. The other site that we're going to be placing solar panels at is on our main canal, which is approximately 115 feet wide. And what that site is going to be showing is the proof of concept nature of this project. So this concept is something that the state really has grand visions for. They have hundreds, if not thousands of miles of canals that they manage. And they see this as a very big potential benefit for them to be potentially scaled on in the future, maybe all of their canal system. There's a lot of water benefits that the UC team has researched and is expecting through this project. One of them is just the reduced amount of water evaporation that would come from the canals. So putting solar panels over the canals is going to shield it from the sun and therefore reduce evaporation. From an irrigation maintenance and operations perspective, there's a lot of vegetative growth that grows in our canal system. Another benefit we're expecting is the shading should reduce the amount of vegetative growth and therefore reduce the amount of resources that TID has to expend every irrigation season. For this particular site, one project that's unrelated to Project Nexus is the construction of a series main reservoir, which is an irrigation regulating reservoir. Even further down the road, there's a vision to create what's being referred to as the Series Innovation Center. And what that's going to be is, in an educational type setting, you have plans to be able to share the sustainability type nature that we're constructing here in this area, both from a solar energy generation perspective, but also from a water management and savings perspective. TID being willing to take on this challenge of a first of its kind project in the country just shows that it wants to be at the forefront. It wants to be leading this industry and showing what is possible. It's taking novel ideas such as Project Nexus to come up with solutions to meet the state's renewable energy goals, which is 100% carbon-free energy generation by 2045. You know, years from now, being able to say this is a project I worked on, I think is definitely going to be a highlight of my career.
We continue our look at the power side of our operations at Walnut Energy Center. Mike Tejada, our combustion turbine department manager, introduces the role thermal generation plays to keep the lights on across our service territory.
I look at my job as being very serious. Reliability to me is making sure this plant runs, and along with our other plants, to make sure that there's power to the community. We're standing in front of Walnut Energy Center. The importance of the thermal generation is that we can come on demand and run regardless of conditions when it comes to weather, the amount of water at Don Pedro, etc. That none of that affects us. We can run as long as we have a supply of natural gas. Currently, we've got 2 gas turbines behind us running. They're at 75 megawatts apiece, hooked up to a 100 megawatt steam turbine that runs purely off of their exhaust fumes through a boiler, boiling water. There is a Walnut power plant, which has 2 smaller gas turbines, and those operate at about 24 megawatts apiece. And then the third thermal plant we have is Almond Power Plant, and that's often referred to as Almond 1 and Almond 2 because we built Almond 2 much later. That's a total of 4 gas turbines, and those run in the neighborhood of 50 megawatts apiece, 49 for one of them, 54 for the other 3. At any given time, there's at least 2 TID personnel at this plant and the Almond plant. 24/7, 365, holidays, you name it. We're here all the time. We're not allowed to be unmanned at any time. There's a large control room at each plant. It's manned 24/7. In addition, there's one person helping that person who's often in and out of the control room. They're out in the plant looking at things, taking water samples, testing. In addition to that, it takes a maintenance crew with a total of 15 to 20 people at each plant. The only plant that doesn't have that is Walnut because it just doesn't run that often, but we push personnel to that plant when necessary. There's many 1,000-degree temperatures here. There's high pressures, etc., that you have to know what you're doing and be careful around it because we definitely take safety seriously and do everything we can to make sure every operation is as safe as possible. When you refer to a plant as operating at base load, it means, like for this plant, it would mean that we're sitting around 250 megawatts steady and not moving around. We don't often do that here because of the way that the district runs. Often we're in what we call load following, where power control has control of the plant and we're just following their signal, so we're moving up and down, and it's really just a matter of needs. For Walnut Energy Center, it takes us as much as 5 hours to start the plant from cold iron, and cold iron being that everything's completely shut down. If we have some of the plant running, we can shorten that time a bit, but it's still in the hours. And as far as ramp time, we can move from a minimum of, say, 160 megawatts up to the 250 fairly quickly in a matter of minutes. When it comes to the other plants, we can go from completely shut down to the full load of anywhere from 24 to 49 megawatts, depending on what plant we're talking about, in 10 minutes or less. Those other engines are ready at a moment's notice and often are started from power control instead of from the plant itself. I think there's a misconception that they lump these facilities in with coal facilities. Coal is very, very dirty. Natural gas is very, very clean. It was often thought of as the bridge to being able to have solar and wind, etc. We need to realize just how cleaner than often transportation and cars are these plants. On a given day, our load is in the 600s as far as megawatts, and sometimes my plants are producing anywhere from 300 to 400 of that. That's a lot of homes.
The electricity that powers your home takes quite a journey. Joe Gill, Assistant General Manager of Electrical Engineering and Operations, is at one of our substations in Patterson with more.
Today, we're at one of our substations. This is Rogers Substation in Patterson, California. I wanted to give an overview of how power is delivered to your home. All our generation sites from Don Pedro, WEC, and Almond all develop power at a certain voltage level. But unfortunately, that voltage level cannot be reached to your home, so we have to build substations. Those substations then transmit that power at a much higher level that can be transmitted over long distances. And those transmission voltages range from 230 kilovolts, 115 kilovolts, and 69 kilovolts. We provide service to 662 square miles within our service territory, but that's not just it. We also have transmission lines that interconnect to the district to the whole west, so we can bring power in from the north, from the south, And with all these transmission lines that we have approximately 720 miles, and it goes to every substation. Now that substation then distributes that power at a smaller voltage, and that's 12 kV, 12,000 kilovolts. That is now distributed over a number of circuits that go out to residential, commercial developments, and it ranges about to approximately 2,300 miles of distribution circuit that we have. We have approximately 78% of those distribution circuits are overhead and 22 are underground. And once we take those circuits out to your commercial developments or your residential, it goes to a transformer. They're those big green boxes that are in front of your home. That then transmits power from 12,000 kilovolts down to your voltage that's used at your home. That's 240 volts to 120 volts. So that's kind of a big grand overview of how the power is kind of transmitted from our generation sites, our transmission lines, to our substations, from our circuits to your home. To be able to provide you this, our staff, which does a great job and committed to provide excellent service for our customers. And so ranges from our substation crews that are responsible for maintaining our substations here today, our line crews, which are responsible for maintaining our lines, our distribution lines and transmission lines. And we have our communication staff, our electronic staff that make sure that everything works together to provide you that reliable service. We also have to look to the future, and that future is electrification. And for us to be able to build our infrastructure to sustain the needs of our customers. And so we consistently go out and upgrade a lot of our facilities to get more capacity to provide that reliable service, and planning for the future. New substations, new circuits to be able to address all the load concerns that we have to meet our customers' demands and needs. We have Amazon restoration hardware, and there's additional commercial development that's coming in our service territory, along with new homes. And so that's where we'll be expanding our infrastructure to be able to address those needs here.
It's back to TID headquarters for our next stop. Colin Selby, Energy Markets Department Manager, will break down how his department buys and sells power on the open market.
We're here in the trading and scheduling area. We have 9 traders and analysts, and we're the ones that buy and sell power to meet our energy needs. We are the merchant arm of TID, and as a balancing authority, we are responsible for balancing supply and demand in real time. The merchant function is to meet that goal as economically as possible. So if you think of electric supply and demand, there's going to be more expensive generators on the grid and less expensive generators. Typically, our job is to source the least cost generators or generation to serve our load. There's multiple functions within trading and scheduling. So the day-ahead traders, typically they're trading larger pieces, but they have more time to manage that. Real time, you don't sometimes have that luxury. Some days run very smoothly, some days do not. Generation units trip off in the middle of the night. You know, who do you call at that point? Mostly everybody else is sleeping. You are that last line before units get dispatched. It's very difficult to manage all of those uncertainties simultaneously. You know, we have renewables online, we have our thermal generation, we have our irrigation supply and demand. There's uncertainties there. We have our wind resource up in the northwest. We have to manage the transmission system, make sure we're complying with curtailments or whatever's available. So there's a lot of those things that feed into it that seem a little more simple after the fact than it does in real time. The energy imbalance market, in simplest terms, is when there's a constant need to balance supply and demand in real time for electricity. There's inherently going to be some deviations in real time, whether there's going to be too much generation on grid or load's going to come in high or low. That's going to drive a need to converge the supply and demand in real time. That's the function of EIM. The next step is to do that, but as economically as possible. TID's trading and scheduling function has changed since we joined EIM, and the main changes are we now have real-time dispatch at our disposal to help mitigate deviations in load. So if our load does go high, the market can dispatch generation to meet that increase in load. However, we also have to play in the market, you have to come in well-resourced. So we have to manage our capacity available to dispatch up or down to be able to participate. It's very satisfying knowing that we're able to meet our customers' needs on a daily basis. And we know that we're doing the best job we can to meet it economically, save our customers money without sacrificing reliability.
Now we'll take you inside the Power Control Center, a state-of-the-art facility where we're working around the clock managing the energy grid in real time. Here's Power Control Center Department Manager Adam Labuga.
I'm here in TID's Power Control Center, state-of-the-art 3,000 square foot facility. Our main role here is to manage the generation and water flows for the district. We are a 24/7, 365, fully staffed operation. It's a dynamic job. It's constantly moving, constantly changing. You come to work one day and you don't know what you're going to encounter, what types of problems you're going to have to solve, what types of customers you're going to have to help. So Turlock Irrigation District is an industry term called a balancing authority. And essentially what we do here is we balance our generation and our load. So what does that mean? That means we balance the supply of energy with the demand. So every time a customer turns their lights on, that is a demand. And a balancing authority will find that equilibrium in which the supply equals the demand. And in turn, providing TID's customers with reliable power. So the advantages to being a balancing authority is that no one else could tell the district when we can turn our customers off. The industry term is shedding load. No one can tell us to shed load other than our own control center. You've heard the term of brownouts or rolling blackouts. TID has not experienced that, and that's because we are a balancing authority. Electricity is one facet of the job for the balancing authority operator. The other facet is water operations. They monitor and control all releases out of Dom Pedro. Dom Pedro releases are what the farmers use to irrigate their farms. So during a power outage, the operators take that information, they kind of vet it through our state-of-the-art mapping system. The control room is the first stop in which we try to isolate the problem and restore as many customers as possible while the line crews can go out there and safely do their work. The Power Control Center's minimum staffing policy is 3 operators on shift at all times. They work 12-hour shifts, nights, holidays, and weekends. Essentially, after hours, they're the voice of TID. Any type of customer out of power takes place through this control room. Being a lifelong customer in Turlock Irrigation District, it's very satisfying for me to lead a team that solves the problems for the district when it comes to electric and water operations. I'm gonna take a line from one of my coworkers, and he said, every second of every minute of every day, there's men and women that are monitoring the reliable operations of the electrical grid. And that's it.
Next, we head to our series office with Brian Stubbert, Assistant General Manager of Financial Services, to hear about customer service.
Welcome to the Ceres office, one of our 2 customer service locations. Now, when you come to visit one of our customer service locations, or if you just want to give us a call, TID's customer service personnel is looking forward to the opportunity to interact with and serve your needs. TID also offers My TID, an online platform that allows customers to go in and manage and pay their electricity bill, track their energy usage, and many other functions.
I hope you have enjoyed the tour of TID's facilities and have a better sense of what goes into the district's operations. This ends our time together. We hope that when you see a TID truck in your neighborhood or cross a canal, you remember that we are proud to be your reliable, community-owned utility, your community partner.